Coming up on tonight's Battle Cry, well, it's been an appalling week. There's a lot of appalling, starting with the elections, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and a lot more. We'll talk about that. The shutdown, the Democrats, of course, they continue to be appalling, preying on the American people. The most appalling thing of the week, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and on and on. Kansas, some great news from there. We'll deal with that. That's going to be state number 20. And a little bit of history about where it was the last couple of weeks, where I'm going to be next week. And then, of course, the most important part, your Q&A. Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here. Welcome to the Sunday Night Battle Cry. I'm so glad to be with you. This is where you and me, just regular grassroots folks, get to hang out. Glad to be home on a Sunday. Glad to be with you guys. As you know, we start every Battle Cry with a call to action because we believe in activism, and the way I know you're an activist is you're active. It's not just that you watch. It's not just that you sign the petition, which you should do at conventionofstates.com if you haven't done that yet. But it's that you're actually active in the fight. And that doesn't mean just the fight for Convention of States. I want you involved with the state teams and all that. You can click on the resources tab, click take action, volunteer for a position, get involved. That way I'm sure I'll see you when I get out on the field. All that's important, but I want you to be involved in politics more generally. I want you to be block walking. I want you to be knocking on doors. I want you to be calling for candidates. I want you to be able to, if you can, donate money. And I really want you just working for candidates, being engaged in the process. And finally, I think we talked about this last time, I want you to run for office. So it's 2025. I realize it's not even 2026 yet, but my call to action now is get ready for the midterms because they are coming. They're going to be here before you know it, and you need to be involved. And the way we win, by the way you get your candidate to win, the way you win if you're a candidate yourself, is you start now. You don't wait until next year. You certainly don't wait until summer or something like that. I was talking to a candidate from Montana, and we're talking about she needs to start knocking doors right now, literally right now in her district, running for re-election. We want her to win. That means she's got to go out there. She's got to be in front of her constituents face to face before the competition is. So I'm going to encourage you, run for office, find a candidate you want to support, start to investigate school board races, city councils, whatever it is you're interested in, but do it now. Don't wait until next year. Don't wait until you got to make a New Year's resolution. Do it now before the end of the year. This is the time to get started for 2026 midterms. All right. It has been an absolutely stunningly appalling week. No, really, it's been appalling. There's been a lot of appalling stuff. Now you might ask, why am I so happy? It's because I'm always happy because I have hope. And I'm not worried about things. We do the best we can. We leave the results to God. But it's been appalling. You obviously watched the election results on Tuesday night. And if you're a Republican, it's not good news, right? What you saw in New York City, you saw Zoran Mamdani, who is a communist, who is an Islamist, who is a Jew hater. I loved how he said we're going to end anti-Semitism in New York. He's an anti-Semite. He hates Jews. He loves Hamas. He's refused to call for Hamas to disarm. He likes terrorists. He likes this kind of stuff. He's anti-American. Good luck, New York. He's your mayor. You chose him. As they say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This is the ultimate stupid prize. He's got a lot of really stupid ideas. How do I know they're stupid? Because they're communist. Yeah, communist. Has communism been tried before? I always hear people who promote communism say, not real communism. Somewhere in the range of 150 million people have been killed trying to get to quote unquote real communism. You know, the perfect world, utopia, 150 million dead. Should we keep trying? Do you think that's enough? Maybe 150 million dead? Yeah, I think that's enough. He is a communist. He's going to try and bring those ideas and those principles to New York City. Free child care for everybody, rent control on all the apartments, tax the rich to death. I mean, he's literally the top 0.1% in New York City currently pay 25% of the income taxes. We can hear those numbers again. The top 0.1% of the wealthiest New York City residents pay 25% of the city's income taxes. Those are extraordinary numbers. He wants to put a wealth tax, a 2% wealth tax on top of that. Those are already some of the highest tax people in the nation. That'll push it out of control. Corporate tax rate there around 7.2%. He wants to raise it to over 11%. I think the only state with a higher corporate income tax rate is New Jersey, another hellhole. And he wants to add that on, make that into New York. Now, the good news for New Yorkers, he can't do a lot of that stuff. He can't do everything I just described. He cannot increase the tax rate with the city tax rates without the city council. It's a 51-member city council. He's going to have a hard time getting them to go along with that, because I think there are some rational people in that city council. They know it'll drive business straight out of town. Can't increase the corporate tax rate without getting Kathy Hochul, their terrible, terrible governor, and the state legislature to agree to that. They're not going to agree to that. So a lot of stuff he wants to get done, he's not going to be able to pay for. He's not going to be able to get done, which means, by the way, maybe New York City will be okay. Or maybe New York City will be really bad. A lot of the cops are going to leave. He's chasing them off. He's a defund the police guy. I guarantee you lots and lots of them are going to retire, or they're going to go to states like I just saw Houston, by the way, in Texas, was specifically recruiting New York City police officers. A lot of those guys are going to go to states where, we actually appreciate our law enforcement officers. We actually thank them for doing their jobs. They don't get spit on. They're not getting screamed at all the time. So they might come to Texas. They might go to Florida. They might go to Tennessee. Crime's going to go through the roof. He says crime, violence, is just a matter of misdefinition. So he's going to define that down. He's going to put criminals on the street. He's going to take police off of the streets. He's going to try to raise taxes. Look, he's not going to be able to do all of it. And that might be even worse, because if he could do all of it, he'd crater the city. Everybody would see it. I think what's going to happen, he's not going to be able to do most of it because he does not have the power as mayor. I mean, he ran this campaign literally like you would run a campaign for third grade class president or something. Free lollipops for everybody. Free soda pop during class for everybody. No homework. No tests. And then that kid gets elected class president, right? Can the kid do any of it? No, that's Mom Dummy. And by the way, he is just a kid. He's never had a legitimate job in his entire life. Never, ever, ever. He did have a career as a failed rap artist where he rapped in favor of the Holy Land Five. These were folks that were prosecuted for being involved in the World Trade Center bombing. Yeah, he loves terrorists. I'm not kidding when I say he loves terrorists. Anyway, he was elected. You should be appalled. I hope New York City pays the price for it. I'm appalled. Virginia, another place where appalling things happen. I'm not surprised by the election results in New York. I'm not surprised in Virginia either. We shouldn't be surprised, and so we shouldn't be too depressed about it. We can be appalled without being depressed, because I expected this coming. Abigail Spanberger, she beat Winsome Earl Sears. Look, I think Winsome Earl Sears is a fantastic candidate on paper. She's a veteran, totally pro-life, pro-Second Amendment rights. She's good on paper. I mean, she's a veteran. She looks great. Everything about her is great on paper. From my perspective, she was a terrible campaigner. She doesn't give a good stump speech. She's not an inspiring speaker. It doesn't appear to me that she connects well with people. It doesn't appear to me she had good campaign consultants. I thought her initial campaign, which was all about being a Black woman, appealed to who? Republicans? Conservative? No, really, to Democrats. So she didn't inspire her own base, the conservative Republican base. And I just think she ran a terrible campaign. So I'm not surprised she got spanked by Abigail Spanberger. Now, the good news is, while she's a leftist, while she's a Democrat, she is more moderate than Zoran Mamdani. I guess that's one standard you could use. She is better, I'll be honest with it, and she talks like a moderate. I don't think she's going to govern a lot like a moderate, but she's not talking about all the crazy trans stuff. This is some good news, by the way. Most of the Democrat candidates have abandoned the crazy trans talk. By the way, I still think they like that stuff. I still think they're going to vote for that stuff, but they've realized it's a losing issue for them, so they don't really talk about it. So we get Spanberger beats Winsome Earl Sears. I can't even pronounce the lieutenant governor's name there. Another Muslim, I believe she's a Muslim woman. There's a theme here. We could talk about that theme at some point. It concerns me. The rise of Islam in America is a problem. I'm just going to say it up front. I'm not afraid to say it. Islam is incompatible with Western civilization. Islam, in my opinion, is an ideology. It is a political ideology and a social system that uses religion as its fuel. It's different than any other religion. I'm going to say that clearly again. It is primarily a political and social ideology for total control of all social structures, all societies, aims for total world domination. It's different than other religions, which are all about the faith. This is all about societal organization, political ideology. It's not compatible with Western civilization. So I do believe you need to be concerned when you see the rise of Islam in the United States of America. That's a problem we're going to have to face up to. We'll do a whole nother episode on that at some point. At the AG level, you had Jason Miyares was running for AG, and he was running against Jay Jones. I might need to remind you, hopefully I don't need to remind you, Jay Jones was the guy who in a text wished death on his opponent, said 2 bullets in the head was the way to do it, wished death on their children, wasn't joking around. Those texts got released. By the way, nobody in the Democratic Party stood against that. They all continue to endorse him. They all continue to support him. And thank God this very independent-minded, fair-minded guy who loves everybody just the same, believes in blind equal justice. In other words, for him, that means bullets for all Republicans. That guy's now the AG. And for that one, by the way, I blame the voters of Virginia, but I also blame Winsome Sears because she really dragged down the ticket. And that's why Jason Miyares, who was a pretty popular AG, is no longer going to be AG of Virginia. It's really a bummer. So that's Virginia. But again, no surprises there except for maybe Miyares. But I didn't expect Winsome Sears to beat Abigail Spanberger. I figured the lieutenant governor goes across the line with her. The Miyares race was kind of a toss-up, but that state gets more blue by the day. Finally, we move on to New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli, who I think was an excellent candidate. I think Jack ran a great campaign. I just think New Jersey's a blue state. And so if you expect to win statewide, that's pretty rough in a blue state with huge blue metro areas. He ran against Mikey Sherrill. I think Mikey is much more radical than she likes to come across. She tries to present herself as sort of a moderate. I think she's more radical than Abigail Spanberger. So they got themselves another radical leftist governor. Let's see how that works out. I don't think this is going to work out very good for New Jersey, for New York City, for Virginia. All of those places are turning into steaming pots of you-know-what, and I expect that to continue in the future. One thing I want to say about this stuff overall, though, is it didn't freak me out. Like all of those things I just described to you mostly were expected. I am a little bit concerned about other stuff that I saw that's not being reported on. Our good friend Rick Santorum told me that we lost all the House seats in that we expected. We had a chance to win in Pennsylvania. We lost a bunch of school board races, county board races in Republican places to Democrats. It's not good. This is one of the reasons I'm telling you now is the time to get ready for 2026. You got to remember the party in power gets blamed. And that means the party in power usually loses seats in the midterms. And if you don't want Republicans to lose their seats in 2026, got to get to work now. So that was all appalling as far as election results. I'm not happy about any of it, even though I'm not surprised, not depressed. I'm just appalled. All right, here's another thing that is appalling. The Democrats are keeping the government shut down. I was in New York most of the week, in Washington, D.C. most of the week. Getting out last night was rough. The airports are starting to slow down. My flight was delayed by 3 hours. I heard as of today, they're canceling 4,000 flights. That's expected to continue to get worse. And who's doing this? 100%, 100% the Democrats. Why am I so sure about that? Because I believe now 17 times, somewhere between 14 and 17 times, the Republicans have voted for a clean continuing resolution, what they call a CR, to keep the government open at the same level of spending. By the way, I'm not happy about that. You shouldn't be happy about that. They're spending way too much. It's deficit spending. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's immoral. That's what they're offering. Not cuts, not slashing government, not doing the things that I think Republicans should do, but just keeping it the same. And Democrats are against that. Why? Because they lost in the fight over the big, beautiful bill, and they want to put stuff back in that got taken out in that big, beautiful bill. Things like spending on the public broadcast system, which got zeroed out. Hallelujah. Finally, thank you. After all these years, they want to put back in transgender training for Tanzanian bats who live in Zimbabwe and have then immigrated to Hawaii. Now, I'm just kidding. I don't know about that one. But there are a bunch that are crazy like that they want in there. They want to include this monies back in that Republicans got out in their fair and square win on the big, beautiful bill. I hope the Republicans hold strong. It's absolutely outrageous. Democrats are on record saying things like, we think the longer it goes, the worse it gets for the American people and the better it is for us meaning them, the Democrats. That's appalling. They're using you as pawns. They're trying to make your life more difficult. They're trying to shut down the airports so you pay the price for their political games. This is the first time in history, by the way, the filibuster has been used against a clean continuing resolution, meaning a continuing resolution that changes nothing. It just says keep funding the government at the same level. First time there's ever been a filibuster against that. First time Democrats, anybody shut down the government over a clean continuing resolution. 100% the Schumer shutdown. This is all on the Democrats. They won't let us get past the filibuster. We'll see if President Trump is going to convince John Thune to do away with the filibuster. I think they probably should. I'm of mixed mind. I like the filibuster. It gives the minority some rights. Eventually, the Republicans will be in the minority. But the problem is, I think the Democrats are going to do away with the filibuster as soon as they're in power anyway. So if you believe that, it's probably time for Republicans to do it and just get this thing done. All right, let's get to the most absolutely top-notch, like top of the tree, maybe bottom of the barrel, appalling thing this week. And that is Tucker Carlson. I got to tell you, it makes me very sad to say what I'm saying. I have considered Tucker a friend over the years. I don't want to overplay it. It's not like Tucker and I hang out together all the time, but we have socialized. We do hunt together, occasionally fish together on a trip we do a couple of times a year. Been doing that with Tucker for probably, I want to say, going on 12 years now. And so I've known him for quite a while, and on a more social than professional or political basis. Probably a lot of you guys know I was on his show on Fox. Actually, I was on his last show on Fox before he got canceled. And then I've been on his long form show. But right now, Tucker's just doing evil stuff, like really bad. And it hit its zenith this week. He interviewed Nick Fuentes. If you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, go look him up on X and look up some of the worst things he said. Things like he thinks women should be raped, and maybe if not raped, they all just want to be beat up. He didn't say it as nicely as I'm saying it, by the way. Much more foul mouth. They just pretend. They have to pretend they don't want to get beat up. It's just a bunch of disgusting stuff, saying that American Jewry runs the country. Very Nazi tropes. Now, I'm not just calling him a Nazi because I want to call him a Nazi. I hate that. Like, everybody's a Nazi, right? No. He has Heil Hitler Fridays on the Nick Fuentes show. He says Heil effing Hitler and then uses the N-word. I mean, this guy is more vile than I could possibly describe to you. If you want to know how vile, and you want to hear a full takedown on this, listen to Ben Shapiro's show on Monday of this last week, and he spends over 40 minutes going through this. He does a great job. Fuentes is scum, and he's leading a bunch of kids into very deep anti-Semitism, Nazism, real abusive hatred of women. He's a straight up race hater. He believes the races should be segregated. He did a whole thing recently. I saw the segment on it where he was saying it's no big deal for blacks to have to drink out of separate water fountains, to go to separate schools and eat at separate counters and have separate restaurants. He believes in full-blown segregation. He is an absolute true blue white supremacist, white separatist. He's just crazy, and he's evil. And he's a young dude, and he's leading a bunch of young dudes into this movement. They call them groypers, and it's terrible and it's horrible. And generally speaking, no mainstream people want to intersect with Nick Fuentes. I wouldn't have him to one of my events. I wouldn't want to have a little sit down chat with him, but Tucker decided that would be a good idea. And Tucker had him on the show. And I actually would not have a problem with this if Tucker had actually asked him the hard question. So, Nick, you actually say that you love Hitler. Let's talk about that. Why do you love Hitler? Right? And dig in it and push back. Did he ask him that? Nope. No, he didn't. Hey, Nick, so you say that women want to get beat up by you and they want to be raped by you, and that's just generally what women want. Like, that's a pretty vile, disgusting thing to say. Why don't you back that up for me? Why don't we have a discussion about that? Hey, Nick, you say that the Jews run the whole world, the Jews run America, and that Jews should get the death penalty, and that Jews should be expelled from our country. Those are pretty vile, horrible things to say. Why don't we have a little bit of a debate about that? Now, to be fair to Tucker, when he talked about Jews in general, Tucker said, I don't really like the idea of scapegoating a whole population. So there was a little bit of pushback. I want to give credit where it's due on Tucker on that. But generally speaking, he fluffed this dude. This was a PR exercise. This is a guy, by the way, who says that Winston Churchill was the bad guy. Hitler was the good guy. He says the Holocaust didn't really take place. He does it in just the most foul-mouthed ways you can possibly imagine. He hates Charlie Kirk. He tried to take over Charlie Kirk's organization. He said to Charlie Kirk that I effed your organization. I impregnated your organization. And now your organization is full of groypers, which is what he calls his followers. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's just disgusting. This guy's violent, disgusting. Tucker gave him this really soft shoulder massage kind of an interview, and it created a firestorm. A lot of people were really angry about it. I was very upset about it. And a lot of people were very upset about it. And I was very critical of Tucker for doing this. Now, I just want to also add, this is not a one-off for Tucker. This is one in a long stream. When Candace Owens went off and became completely anti-Semitic, and she is one of the leading radical, hideous anti-Semites in the United States of America, when she went off and she started attacking Ben Shapiro when she was still at Daily Wire, the very first person to platform her, Tucker Carlson, no pushback. Tucker personally has viciously attacked Ben Shapiro in completely dishonest ways. I had a personal exchange with Tucker Carlson. He was saying Ben Shapiro talks about nothing but Israel. I texted with him and he said, well, that's his opinion. I demonstrated to him that almost none of Ben's texts, or a very small percentage, under 5%, were about Israel. Tucker wasn't buying it. He just said, well, I guess I'll have to take your word for it. So he's after Ben Shapiro because Ben Shapiro supports Israel, hates Mark Levin because Mark Levin supports Israel. Those two guys are two of the greatest American patriots I know, both geniuses, both incredible authors, both pro-American. Tucker hates them and smears them dishonestly, constantly, as does Fuentes. Tucker interviewed President Putin. I absolutely think it's awesome he interviewed Putin. I think that's a great interview. But when he interviewed Putin, it was a relatively softball interview. Kind of hard to do much more when you're sitting in Moscow. You know, people tend to get falled off roofs when they are pushed out windows when they do things that the Kremlin doesn't like. So I'm not going to fault him for too easy of an interview there. But then he went out to a Russian grocery store and did propaganda for the Russian regime. Why? He pretended like it was so cheap and so beautiful and so wonderful in that Moscow grocery store. But it's not cheap, beautiful, and wonderful when you're spending rubles, because most people can't afford to shop the way that Tucker shopped there. He did it as an American shopping in Moscow. Our dollar goes a long ways there and buys a lot. He didn't do it as a Muscovite shopping in Moscow. It was a straight up Potemkin Village propaganda piece. Moscow is so beautiful. The subways are so great. Yeah, that's the capital of a totalitarian despot's country. Of course, his capital city in the area in the main capital is beautiful. That's not true for the rest of Russia. That's not how most people live in Russia. So Tucker did a fluff job for him. Tucker's been doing a fluff job for the Qataris, however you pronounce it. I don't understand why people say he's been paid. I'm not saying he's been paid. I haven't seen evidence of that. I would say it if I'd seen evidence of that. Seems like Tucker has plenty of money. Maybe he doesn't need to be paid by the Qataris, but for whatever reason, he sure cozied up to them. They are terror supporters. They are the biggest supporters of Hamas and Hezbollah. Their money, Qatari money, goes directly to Hamas and Hezbollah for terrorism, not just against Jews, but against the rest of the world. It's not good. Why is he cozying up with them? Tucker does that. Tucker has the Iranian president on. The Iranian president comes on and says things that we all know for sure are lies. Oh, no, Iran's never threatened the American president. No, it's not true. The Ayatollahs are on record issuing fatwas against the American president, death sentences against Donald Trump. There are people in jail in the United States of America right now who were allegedly hired by Iran to do a hit against Donald Trump. Yeah, he just let that stand. He didn't question it. He didn't push back against it. He didn't push back against the Iranian president on one thing. And then, by the way, you have Ted Cruz on there, and he viciously, and I do mean viciously, attacks Ted Cruz over and over and over again. Abusively, viciously. At one point, he even has to apologize because his lack of gentlemanly behavior is so obvious, and Cruz pushes back. It's just horrible. Setup question after setup question, digging, mocking, laughing. Putin, now I loves that guy. The Qataris, love those guys. Nick Fuentes, loves those guys. Candace Owens loves her little anti-Semitic backside. Yeah, Tucker's in with all of these people. And I don't know why. And it breaks my heart because I never knew Tucker this way. And maybe I just never saw this side of him. I don't really know what happened to Tucker. And I can't claim to know what's going on in his head. I can tell you the results in the real world are bad. Tucker is now literally the center of the online Nazi world. Like, they love this guy. The white supremacists, the Nazis, the Aryan Brotherhood. Look at the comments. All the anti-Semites, the horrible, blood libel, disgusting, jihadi anti-Semites. They love him if you look at the comments on the stuff that he has posted. They loved the Nick Fuentes interview. They loved it. At some point, you got to ask yourself, if you're not an anti-Semite, but you have become the center of the anti-Semite world, you got to ask yourself what you're doing. Like, maybe you're doing something wrong. Look, again, I don't know why Tucker is doing what he's doing. He did do a public speech where he talked about being attacked by demons. Maybe he's being troubled by demons, darkened by demons. Maybe he's possessed by demons. I don't know. I don't know much about that kind of stuff, but it doesn't seem like the Tucker I used to know, and it's really tragic. There was a tragic sort of epilogue to this story, which is Kevin Roberts of Heritage Foundation, who is, I consider, a real friend, by the way. I spent a bunch of time with Kevin. He's been an endorser of Convention Estates. He came out in defense of Tucker, and it was terrible. And he basically said that it didn't matter to him what Tucker said. We're not going to cancel our friends. He said, we will always stand by Tucker, and basically no matter what. And I don't, like, that is so, at best, amoral. I don't understand it. Your friends can do things that cause you to push back against them, and that cause you to even attack them if they do really bad things. And I think Tucker's doing really, really bad things to the country, to the conservative movement, to young men who follow him and listen to him. It's really bad. And the fact that Kevin defended him, said that he'd always stand by him. Now, he was very clear. I want to be very clear. I don't think Kevin Roberts is any kind of an anti-Semite. I've known him for a long time. I know him well. But defending Tucker was just a very, very bad move. And he viewed it as Tucker was being canceled, and he doesn't believe in cancellation, and I'm not going to let that happen. I think it was a terrible mistake. He's come out since and said a lot of what he said was a mistake. Not enough, in my opinion, unfortunately. And I say this with all due respect, again, on a personal level. I've always liked Kevin. I've always respected Kevin. He made a terrible mistake. And he supported Tucker when Tucker was doing vile things. I think Kevin says he didn't know all the stuff that Tucker was doing. I think it's the responsibility of a leader of an organization, when you stand by somebody, to really know why everybody's attacking, because a lot of people are attacking. Kevin also said that people who were criticizing Tucker online were part of a venomous conspiracy. I'm part of that venomous conspiracy. I was attacking Tucker online. I was saying the stuff was horrible and inappropriate. And I, again, texted with Kevin, and I'm not going to reveal our personal texts, but he did understand that perspective. I said, I don't know why you're attacking me and people like me. If you have problems with people telling you to cancel Tucker, I'm not seeing anybody say cancel Tucker. We're all saying Tucker was, if he had Fuentes, should have asked real questions. We weren't even trying to cancel Fuentes. We're just saying, don't do a fluff interview that helps him. That seems like a reasonable criticism. I think Kevin was having a difficult time drawing a distinction between what's cancellation and what's an appropriate way of putting a fence around the movement and keeping insane, ugly, vicious, dark, racist people out of it, which I think we have to do if we're going to have a movement. So that is just an appalling situation still unfolding. Kevin did a town hall with his entire staff, which was leaked. I don't know if it was leaked or Heritage really put it out there. I'm not sure what it is, but I still don't think that helped very much. I thought it kind of got halfway there and never got all the way there. That's my opinion. Some Heritage staffers seem to have said, it's all okay. I saw him say, or somebody said, we don't want you to resign. And it appeared that most of the people in the room clapped about that. I don't know what's going to happen. Not my org. I don't have an opinion on what should happen over there. Look, I will pray for all of these people. I'll tell you straight up, I would pray for Nick Fuentes to really really have the Holy Spirit invade him and cast out all this darkness and evil, all this horrible stuff that he says. I would pray that Tucker really sees the light and gets the Holy Spirit inside him. The Holy Spirit cleanses out all the darkness and all this, what I consider support for evil stuff that he's been doing lately. I pray for Kevin Roberts that he figures out how to weather this storm and come out stronger on the other side. I know I can say for sure for Kevin, I believe he's a man of very strong faith, and I believe he's a man of good intentions. I can't say that for Nick or Tucker. And that's not because I'm judging their faith. I don't know what their faith is. I know Tucker says in passing that he's a Christian. That seems fairly recent to me. That's not a criticism, just a statement of fact. But I don't really know kind of the state of his faith. Nick Fuentes, I can't say either. He definitely claims to be a Christian. I don't see him do anything that seems like we're seeing the fruits of his faith. But I will still, and I think we all should, even if we're appalled, pray for those people and pray for their hearts and pray for the Lord to intervene with them. So let's switch from appalling, because I can only do so much appalling, to exciting and great and awesome and amazing. Let's hear it for Kansas. Kansas, finally. All right, what Kansas? What about Kansas are you asking? No, it's not a World Series. No, it's not a Super Bowl. It's not anything like that. It is the fact that for about a year and a half, maybe 14 months, a district court in Kansas, a federal court, has had a case under advisement where it was the Kansas Constitution was challenged by two Kansas legislators on a particular point. The Kansas Constitution says that in order to call an Article 5 convention, the Kansas legislature has to pass that call by a 2/3 margin. Well, that's unconstitutional because that burdens the process set out by the framers in the United States Constitution with an extra requirement. And you're not allowed to do that because of the Supremacy Clause, which says the U.S. Constitution is supreme over the state constitutions where there's a conflict. This was a conflict. It was briefed. It was argued. Two legislators from Kansas actually had this case in court. They were represented. My co-founder, Mike Ferris, was co-counsel on the case. Our great lawyers at Graves, Garrett, and Grime in Kansas City were primary counsel on the case. So Mike Ferris and Graves, Garrett, and Grimes. And I think Mike wrote the majority of the pleadings. He's just a genius. The guy's unbelievable. We've been waiting 14 months for a decision. Briefed and argued 14 months ago. I was actually with Eddie Grime, one of our lawyers, in D.C. at the Federalist Society meetings, and I was sitting there with him, and we're like lamenting. This was just a couple nights ago. When is this judge ever going to decide? We didn't know at that moment. The decision was in his inbox. It was announced the next morning. Total victory for COS. Invalidates that part of the Kansas Constitution. We only need a simple majority. We have already passed in the Senate by a 2/3 majority. It is pending on the floor of the House in Kansas right now. They're not in session. They have a 2-year session. When they come back in session, January 1 or the first week of January, that measure, that Convention of States resolution will be ready and ripe for a vote on the floor. We only need a simple majority. I think we were like 3 to 5 votes shy anyway of a super majority. We're going to get that simple majority. I predict early, maybe first week of January, Kansas becomes state number 20 for Convention of States. And I am so excited about that. Yes. All right. Last week, I was in Washington, D.C., just teasing some stuff. I got a lot of exciting stuff going on in Washington, D.C. I don't usually say that about D.C. We got some big new things to announce coming out of D.C. I can't announce them yet, but it was a great week. I was there just Tuesday through Thursday in D.C. I'm going to be doing that a lot more because of these announcements that we're going to have. Week before that, I was in Ohio, met with a bunch of grassroots, met with a bunch of donors. I love Ohio. It's like the great middle American state. It is a good representation of middle America. A lot of great patriots there. There's a lot of good politics going on in their legislature there. I had dinner with a legislator and a bunch of donors. That was wonderful. I love that place. That was, by the way, in Springfield. Got to go to the Spread Eagle Tavern. If you've never been there, historic tavern there. A lot of politics gets done at the Spread Eagle Tavern. Had dinner with about 10 great patriots. Really great trip. Then I went to Missouri and I spoke at the National Association of Christian Lawmakers. I just presented Convention of States, gave them an update. A lot of people very enthused about it at the National Association for Christian Lawmakers. And then I picked up my son's dog, Odin, and I drove him back here to Texas. Yep, we drove all night. Is he back here? Where is he? I don't know if you can see him. Hey, Odin, you want to come over here? Let's see. Come here, buddy. Odin, come here. You guys have seen Winston. You have seen Doc, but you have not seen Odin. This is Odin. He's the new house baby. So now, because it wasn't enough, we have 3 Great Danes in the house. Odin is the biggest of them. He's also the oldest. Odin's 5 years old. I think he's probably 160 pounds. I think Doc's probably 140 by now. Winston, he's the mini me. He's about 25, 130 pounds. So we have 3 of them in the house. Love you, big boy. All right, go lay down. So I just wanted to know there's 3 Great Danes in the house now. I knew you would think that was exciting. So I picked him up in Missouri because my son's in-laws drove down. They were watching him for a while. We're going to have him here for a few months until my son and daughter-in-law can take him back. So you will now be seeing 3 Great Danes in the office. All right, next week I am headed off to South Dakota for some pheasant hunting. I love that. I love pheasant hunting. It's just, I get to do it once a year. The thing I love about pheasant hunting, it's not the hunting, it's not the pheasants, it's the bird dogs. Man, the bird dogs are just amazing. Watching working dogs like that is such a cool thing. I love doing it. Hey, by the way, before we close out tonight, don't forget like button, hit the subscribe, hit the ring, the notification bell. Make sure you beat the algorithm. The algorithm is not going to tell you about this in the next episode, but you can do it. Like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Also, a shout out to Bill Taylor. He had a great op-ed called Washington is Paralyzed, and that's time for an Article 5 convention. You can find that in the Aiken Standard. But if you just look up Bill Taylor, Washington is Paralyzed, I'm sure you'll find that online. Also, very excited. My friend Heidi St. John endorsed Convention of States. If you go to conventionofstates.com/endorsements, you can find her endorsement. She is a leader in the homeschool movement. She has her own wonderful podcast. Just been a great friend of Convention of States for a long time. I recommend you watch her content, all of her content. She's really good. She ran for the state legislature there in Washington State as well. Again, conventionofstates.com/endorsements. Also, if you want more news and you want it delivered straight to your inbox and you want stuff that we cover here on the BattleCry, then go to conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. Conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. All right, now in our favorite segment, the Ask Mark Anything segment, you can put your questions in here by going to conventionofstates.com, Ask Mark, conventionofstates.com/Ask Mark. We're going to do some Ask Mark questions. Angel Cushing, one of my favorites out there. Angel is an incredible activist, knows everything there is to know about 30 by 30. If you don't know about it, ask Angel. Everything about the federal government and state governments trying to take away our land rights. She is the queen of that. She asks, why can a state override the federal constitution? Can you explain the limits of nullification? Look, the Supreme Court has said nullification, where a state just says no to a federal law, it's not constitutional, according to the Supreme Court. And I have a more practical reason for it. Imagine if every state, just whenever they wanted, just said no to the federal government when they didn't like a federal law. We wouldn't have a federal government. States would just do whatever they want. We would have 50 individual states. We wouldn't have a common defense. States wouldn't have to cooperate in any way. That's just not how our federal system works. Nullification also, I'm not a fan because I think nullification is a system for people who hate their kids. The reason I say that is we can nullify, they can pass the law. We nullify, they pass the law. You get the picture. It's like Groundhog Day, and they have a multi-trillion-dollar industry of people in Washington, D.C. passing laws that we might not like. That's why I'm not a fan of nullification. The federal constitution is supreme to the state constitutions, according to the supremacy clause of the federal constitution. The Supreme Court has said nullification is not a legal defense. And if you read what the framers said about it, they were really saying that Article 5 is the ultimate form of nullification. It really is, because we can change anything we want by calling an Article 5 convention. That's the bar that the framers set for us, and that's what we should be doing. All right, JBS, have you heard of Greater Idaho? That's a movement that will absorb Eastern Oregon into Idaho. Yeah, JB, I've heard about it. I'm in favor of it. There was a movement like that in California where they were trying to break it into 2 states. I think it was called the state of Jefferson. The problem is the state would have to agree to it, and then the federal government would have to agree to it. And I don't think you're going to get the state of Oregon to agree to split that part of the state off. Why should they? They don't have to listen to that part of the state. It has a much lower population base. They can pillage it of resources. They can pillage it with taxes. They don't really have to care what that part of the state thinks. It's not in their best interest as evil despots to let that part of the state go. And I don't think that Washington, D.C. would do it either, generally, because, the Democrats certainly aren't going to vote for it. They're not going to want another conservative state. So I just don't think that's a practical approach, but I love it. I love it because the narrative's right. God bless you if you can get it done. I'm totally into it. I would say keep going and keep doing it. I have another question here from somebody anonymous. When did you know you wanted to own Great Danes? I think when it was time to get my first dog on my own, and Patty and I were serious and we were engaged and we're getting ready to get married. And I've always been attracted to large animals, large trucks. I had an F-350 dually that was lifted. I like big things. Maybe that's why I live in Texas now. And I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I like big stuff. Who knows? People might say I'm compensating, right? You can make that joke. It's okay. But on our honeymoon, Patty and I decided to get Great Danes. We picked up our first pair of Great Danes literally on the way from the honeymoon. I said to Patty, hey, I want to either have kids or dogs right away. And she said dogs. So I lost that fight. We had dogs before we had kids, and we had 2 Great Danes. We've now always had at least 1 Great Dane in the house, generally 2 Great Danes in the house. Right now we have 3 Great Danes in the house, as you saw. But our first 2 Great Danes were Kenya and Joe. We owned a coffee house at the time. Kenya AA was a kind of coffee. Joe, his full name was Cup of Joe. So that's as long as I've had my own dogs. I grew up with labs, but as long as I've had my own dogs, I've had Great Danes. Favorite book of the Hebrew scriptures or the Old Testament, and why? Man, I would say that my favorite book would have to be Exodus. And the reason I would say it is because it is the story of exile and return. And I think this is a meta theme throughout the entire Bible, throughout the Hebrew scriptures and the New Testament, the story of exile and return, exile and redemption, right? Of the prodigal son going away and coming back. I think this theme repeats itself throughout the Bible. And also, if you want to understand the story of the Jewish people, and I am Jewish by birth, both sides of my family, I think Exodus really encapsulates the story of the Jewish people. I think one of my favorite takeaways from Exodus, and one of the things I try to remember myself, is if you know the story of Exodus, God's done all of these incredible miracles for the Jewish people, right? Ultimately freeing them from Pharaoh. And so they're freed from Pharaoh. All this gold and silver is given to them before they leave. They leave. And of course, Pharaoh tells his army to go after them. The Red Sea is parted for them. They cross the Red Sea. It closes on Pharaoh's army. So they're safe on the other side of the Red Sea. I mean, just absolute amazing, epic miracles. God delivers manna to them so they have plenty to eat. And pretty soon they're complaining to God. Like, oh, well, it's terrible. They're complaining to Moses about God. We want meat, and we were better off when we were back there, and we had water. And the reason that story matters to me is it's just indicative of the fallen nature of man and our ingratitude. I guarantee you, if you're a believer and you pay attention, you have had miracles in your life, and you have noticed them. I've never met a believer who has really given their life to Jesus Christ that has not experienced miracles, has not actually seen unexplainable, real miracles in their life. And I think that we have a tendency, just like the Hebrews, just like the Israelites, to be like, yeah, well, but what have you done lately for me, God? Things are pretty rough right now. I mean, there was that miracle thing, way back when. You saved me in that accident, cured me of cancer. You got me a job when I was broke, whatever it was, where God intervened in your life. And then we forget about that and we lose our gratitude, and we kind of look at God as the vending machine. It's like, well, I'm putting my quarter in, I'm praying. Why aren't you giving me what I want, my candy bar out of the machine? And so I think for me, reading Exodus and seeing the ingratitude of many of the Jews after having experienced these miracles reminds me to be grateful for all the miracles in my life. And I got a lot of them. I'm married to the best woman in the world. I got the best kids in the world. I got the best granddaughter in the world. I think I have the best dogs in the world. I live in a beautiful place. I love my house. I love the property. I love my state. I love my country. I have enough food to eat. I have a job that pays my bills. I mean, I'm healthy. It's hard to be more blessed than we are. And so Exodus reminds me that even when I go through the Exodus, even when difficult things happen, that I need to be grateful for everything that God has given me. And frankly, even grateful for the trials and tribulations. Favorite kind of barbecue sauce? there's a lot of controversy here. I know I could get into, Detroit barbecue, Kansas City barbecue, Texas barbecue, Carolina barbecue. I'm going to say the most controversial thing of all. I love all of them equally. I know it's not a cop-out, though. I'm not a cop-out. This is absolute truth. I love barbecue. When I travel, if I'm traveling by myself and I don't have dinner with Grassroots, I go to a barbecue joint. And I'm not talking about a chain barbecue joint. I'm not looking for Texas Roadhouse or something like that. I'm looking for a true blue, local, down home, where the regular folks eat off of tin trays and wax paper barbecue joint. And I go, you do whatever is the best local barbecue. And so I love it. I love a vinegar-based barbecue sauce. I love a hot barbecue sauce. I love a sweet barbecue sauce. I love barbecue. I just can't help myself. Anybody, if I'm anywhere and you say, hey, we're going to take you out for barbecue, I promise you're going to get a smile on my face and a growl from my tummy. All right, if I could time travel once, would I go to the past or the future, and where exactly? Man, this one is really hard for me. I have a super vivid imagination. I love history. I love history books. I'm super interested, man, to sit down, maybe with Madison, Adams, Jefferson, maybe be in the Constitutional Convention. Whew, that would be amazing. At the same time, I would love to travel 100 years, 500 years into the future and see what's going to happen. I'd love to be able to trace my own family and see what happens. I pray that it's all okay. You never know. I pray that we don't have Armageddon between here and then, that war to end all wars. Maybe we have end times by then. And if I went 500 years into the future, maybe I'd find the Lord's kingdom, right? The new kingdom. I don't know. I'm going to cop out and say, I don't know. I can't answer that question. If I was a wrestler, what would my entrance theme song be? Oh my God. This is producer G. This is a producer G question. What would my entrance theme song be if I was a wrestler? I'm going to say it would probably have to be a Zeppelin song. I'm a huge Zeppelin fan. I love almost the entire Zeppelin catalog. And I would probably choose, I'm going to say, it's kind of like an off one, but I would choose When the Levee Breaks. And I would do that because if you're a wrestler, I'm going to break the levee. You're going to have no place to go, baby. That's what I'm saying, if you know the lyrics to that song. Gee, these are tough. If I could teach a class on one niche topic you love, what would it be? Oh, my niche topic would be how to be a mentor. I love mentoring. It's one of the most satisfying things I do. I don't feel like anybody ever taught me how to be a mentor. I've been blessed primarily as an adult, not so much when I was younger, but blessed to have some really great mentors as an adult. And I think mentoring is just this incredible process of doing your best to transfer wisdom from one human brain to another, one human heart to another, sometimes one generation to another. I think it's a really important thing. I don't think enough of it is done in the world. I have an intern right now that's what she asked me to teach her, was how to be a mentor. And I'm passionate about mentoring. So I think it would be how to be a good mentor. Be honest. How many tabs do you have open right now? Okay. I'm just going to tell you caught me at a time that's not as embarrassing as usual. I have 3 monitors. I normally have 3 browsers open on 3 monitors, and they're all full. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I have 2 messaging apps. I have a password app. I have a VPN, actually 3 messaging apps open. So I don't know. Is that embarrassing? Is that too many? I don't feel like I have too many up. It's not as much as I normally have up. Those are great questions, G. I love your really hard questions. By the way, if you want to put in hard questions, crazy questions, personal questions, you can see I will answer all of them. I may fail in my answer, maybe a pathetic answer, but I will answer all of them. You can do that at conventionofstates.com/ask. Mark, don't forget, get involved in the 2026 midterms finding candidates, walking for candidates, whatever you got to do, get involved right now. Go to conventionofstates.com and fill out the petition, click on the Take Action tab, and then go ahead and just be an activist. That's all I want you to do. Just go out there and be active. I love you guys. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the BattleCry.